If you guys are ready, why don't you guys get up and give a big round of applause to our favorite Blue Power Ranger, David Yost. David, how are you? Pleasure.
Pleasure is mine.
All right. I see a lot of excitement here in the crowd, which is great. So do you ever get tired of this when you come in and you see everyone dressed up in the blue and you know all the love that you get?
No, I mean, how do you get tired of being loved? That's not at all. That's one of the most humbling and greatest gifts I think any of us from the original cast have been given. 20 some years ago when we first started this TV show, never did we think that we would have the lasting impact that we've had on so many people's lives, and that the characters that we played would influence you guys in ways that were incomprehensible at the time. So it's amazing, and obviously I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. It means the world to me that you guys have been with us through the thick and thin of it for 20, I don't want to say the number, but 26, 27 years. I mean, we filmed the original pilot in 1992, so that puts us at 27 years. But for you guys, in terms of airing, it's been 26 years, so a long time.
Now we talk about, or you were just talking yourself about how long this has been running. Do you feel any type of pressure at all being part of that original cast, or is there almost even that fatherly, look at the cast members that, come after you, those torch grabbers that came after you? Do you kind of look at them and say, there's a certain way to be a Power Ranger, or anything like that?
Well, I mean, in my head, I certainly think that, because sometimes I see some of them sort of acting out, and I was like, I don't think you should be representing the franchise the way that you're representing it. But, they're adults, they're actors, we're not really our characters. I do sort of take my role a little bit more seriously, because, I want to make sure that I'm being the best person that I can be for you guys. I don't want to disappoint you. So you guys keep me in check for sure. But I don't ever tell anybody how to live their life, but I wish some of them would clean up their act a little bit, for sure.
Totally understandable. Now, we talk a little bit about this and about the love that you have for the character. Can you tell us a little bit, and I'm sure you get this question all the time, but can you tell us, what it was like for you playing Billy and how similar the two of you are? How much of you is in Billy and how much of Billy is in David?
We certainly are a lot more, I don't know what the right word is, interconnected now. But, when I was an actor just moving to Hollywood, I was nothing like Billy. I don't consider myself to be a smart, intelligent person. I'm very much an average C student. Billy taught me a lot. Like, they would send me my scripts, and there would be all these big words, and I had no idea what Billy was talking about, and I was like, what? And I, as an actor, was like, I can't believe I took this role on. But Billy made me smarter. I looked all the words up in the dictionary, and I would go home at night, and I would rehearse the best that I could in terms of trying to make what I was saying sound somewhat normal and natural. So as time went on, I became a more intelligent person because of Billy. So that was cool. But we were drastically different, drastically.
No, you said you're a young actor in Hollywood, starting out and getting this part. Now, the fame came almost instantaneously with the show. It almost seemed like it was an overnight hit. At least my remembering back to my childhood as well. When did you know that you guys were this hit? When did you know you were this big global phenomenon?
I still don't know that I fully know, even though I travel all around the world and get to meet amazing people like you guys. But we filmed almost the entire first season. We filmed 40 episodes for sure before it even started airing. So we had no real true gauge of how the show was going to go. But you're right. As soon as it aired, it went straight to #1, and not only in the United States, but once it started airing in other countries, same phenomenon started happening. But I don't think any of us, that first Christmas was pretty crazy. The first 2 Christmases were pretty crazy because your parents would stand in line for you guys and fight with each other to get the toys because there was a limited amount of toys because they just really had no gauge of how the show was going to go either. And so that was kind of like our first, like, oh, well, this is kind of a big deal because parents are fighting about our toys. But I don't think any of us really understood it until, I'm sure many of you have heard the story before, but we did a show at Universal Studios, and we were supposed to just do like one little tiny show at a little small amphitheater that maybe sat 200 people at the most. And we were there early, rehearsing in the morning, starting like at 7:30 or something like that. And by 9 o'clock, they had come to us and said, you know, they've had to close the doors to Universal Studios because they've sold out the park already, and the 101 freeway, which is one of our major freeways in Los Angeles, it's shut down like in 8 miles in each direction. So like that's unheard of, to shut down the freeway. Usually it's a horrible car accident, but to shut it down because people are trying to come see people at Universal Studios was just unheard of at that time. And for Universal Studios to say we've had to close our doors because we've oversold the park, I mean, that's sort of a huge deal and a huge honor. And then they moved us to the big theater, and we ended up doing like 6 or 7 shows to crowds of between 6,000 and 7,000 each time. Right. So, you know, we got to do our little show for about 36,000 people that day.
Wow. Now, as a teenager, or even as a young adult,
a pretend teenager,
yeah, a pretend teenager, as a YA, as they say, yeah. How do you not let this go to your head at all? Because the entire cast, like, you guys are renowned for being very humble, you know, and having respect for what you guys have gained. How does that happen, though, especially at such a young age?
Oh, I don't know. I think we've all gone through different levels of dealing with fame, and you know, you have to kind of go through it on your own. I mean, it was great for us because as a cast, we became famous together. Right. So we kind of went through all this crazy navigating Hollywood and navigating fame together. But then you still have to, you know, sort of internalize it for yourself. And what does this mean? And how do I deal with this? My life is different now. I was telling people yesterday, you know, and I don't hate this at all, but every day somebody, at least one person, if not more, but at least one person will come up and say, hey, you're that guy, you're the Blue Ranger. I was saying that I was, God, where was I? I was in the airport the other day, and some guy's like, hey, you're that Morphin guy. And so I was like, yeah. But a lot of you will have the ringtone, do on your, do you? Have it?
I literally
do.
A
lot of you guys have that. And so you think you're being sly, and I'll be at a restaurant or I'll be in the airport and I'll hear that go off, and I know somebody's waiting for me to turn around and be like, who's doing that kind of thing. But, you know, so it's really awesome. And, you know, people say, do you ever get tired? Do you always feel like you're just going to be a Power Ranger kind of thing? And, you know, there certainly has been years after I left the show where I was like, I'm never going to escape this kind of thing. But as time has gone on, I know all of us embrace it now because it's just been such an amazing gift. And to be part of a franchise that has continued on, and you know, they still do so much about the original characters, like with Boom Studios putting out the comic books. They remade the 2017 film based on the original characters. You know, it's obviously a huge honor to be a part of something that they want to continue to try to emulate. Right. I don't know if it will ever have the impact that it did back in the 90s. They haven't been able to do that yet, but it's certainly humbling and awesome.
Now, what do you think when you do see, like, it's one thing to, you know, pass the torch down to a new cast and them portraying new characters, but when you see a movie and, you know, you see a new Billy, or you see even the James Vanderbeek.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, like, when you see that, like, what do you think? Like, obviously they're paying an homage to you as well, but does ego ever get in the way, or is it more flattery, you feel?
Yeah, I hope for me or anybody else it wouldn't be an ego thing. I think like with the new cast that they did in the 2017 film, I was proud of all those actors. I thought they did a great job. Obviously, R.J. Kyler, who played Billy, I am very proud of. I feel like he stole that movie, and that movie became about Billy's character in a lot of ways. So that was awesome. And he and I had the opportunity to meet beforehand. You know, we would go out to lunch every now and then and just talk, and he's such a good guy, and he's such a talented actor, and so I couldn't be more happy. So there's no ego from me in terms of him playing a role that I created. on any level. I think he brought his own skill set to it, and I think he did an amazing job. And then, I don't, in terms of casts that come after us, I don't ever feel any ego with them at all.
Perfect.
I don't think so.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that, as I said earlier, anytime any of us hear about the original cast, we hear about the humility and how humble everyone is, and just how gracious you guys are when it comes to fans and the sort. Was there any of that ever a conscientious effort? Like, was there ever like meetings like, hey, we've got this kind of wholesome kind of persona,
Yeah.
let's make this our brand sort of thing, or is this just naturally you guys as a whole?
I mean, I think it's naturally as a whole. I think with the original cast, we had such an amazing chemistry together from the very beginning. Like Amy Jo, Austin, Walter, and myself, we all were auditioning together, and we all were. We kind of got paired up together early on by the casting directors and producers. They had like 3 different casts, and we were the A cast, and. We would actually take the time to go and rehearse together and really get to know each other, so we came off like legitimate good friends,
Right.
And so I think because we put that in and we took the time to get to know each other, that we, developed a bond that helped us sort of navigate, as we talked before, the fame. And I think as the show became popular, I know the producers, as best that they could, would be like, you guys, this is a kid's show. You have an image that you have to sort of live up to,
Right.
and you don't want to disappoint the millions of fans out there. So, things were said like that, but we were young, and we lived in Hollywood, and we were going through fame, and so we weren't always perfect, but overall we have been. And I think as time has gone on, I mean, everybody is really genuine and super nice people, so I guess we're just lucky.
Yeah, and I mean, any of us that follow any of you on social media, we see how familiar you are with each other still, and how often you guys stay in contact, which I think is great. And I think all of us fans, we all admire the original cast so much because of that camaraderie that just came across to everybody. Now, I'm absolutely done monopolizing all of your time, because you folks want to come here and ask David a few questions as well. So if you'd like to, just come on right up to the mic here if anyone has any questions.
Don't be shy.
Hi, David.
Hey.
We know that you're good friends with Amy Jo Johnson.
Correct.
She's a Toronto resident and a Canadian citizen.
Yep.
My question for you is, what would it take for you to move up north and become a Canadian resident yourself?
Global warming.
Global warming.
So I'm not a fan of, no offense, I'm not a fan of seasons, and I'm not a fan of snow by any means. I mean, I know you guys are pretty low in Canada, so there's worse places in the United States that are colder, like Duluth, Minnesota.
Right.
But I grew up in Colorado and in Montana and Iowa. I've had my stint with cold and snow, and I just could never return to it. Although I like your guys' philosophies a lot better up here. There's a lot of good things up here, but I don't know what it would take other than sun.
We get about 4 good months of
That's not enough.
weather.
I need at least 10.
Well, we got to set him up in Vancouver.
Thanks,
Yeah, I've
David.
been to Vancouver. It's pretty,
Yeah.
but it's cold up there too.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, come on up.
Hey there, guys. David, hopefully I word this right, but when you first were starting out, it was obviously coming from Japan, right? A lot of the martial
footage,
arts that
yep.
were done in it.
Yep.
When it started to what would it be? It started to
Transition?
transition more to you guys doing probably more of
The
it.
American
Especially
footage?
now, it's probably a lot more of it done in studio here. So how was the transition even for you guys? So you guys, I know there wasn't as much as there is now, but how was it like learning the martial arts and some of the training and some of the stuff you had to go through, and how did it transition? Because I feel like you did have to do more later on.
Yeah, I mean, the first season, most of the fighting footage was all from Japan, from the Japanese TV show, and then after that they'd run out of footage, so we would start filming everything in the United States. And so, for us as the actors, we always did our own stunts out of costume. That was always us. And then in costume, it would most likely, typically, be a stunt double. So it was our stunt double's responsibilities to emulate the Japanese footage and make us look good. And they did an amazing job, for sure. So, I mean, we were in costume every episode, for sure, but it would be rare that we would actually do the fights, because if we got injured in costume, it would shut the show down until we got healed. So I will say I got into a bar fight. This is when I wasn't being a good Power Ranger, and I had my nose broken. And so for like 4 episodes, you'll never see a close-up on my face because my nose was broken, and they would draw like black lines down the side of my nose to make it look straight. All these little tricks I did.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was a bad Power Ranger at times. I'm sorry.
Did you win the fight?
Did I want to fight?
Did you win the fight,
No,
the bar fight?
the guy, he sucker punched me.
Oh.
It was crazy. It was really bad. But anyways, so hopefully that answers your
Yeah,
question
no, it did.
to some degree.
Just a quick add,
Go
and
for
then
it.
I'll sit down. But Billy was definitely the kind of, because he was more brainy than some of the other ones. He fought a little bit more awkwardly.
Correct.
Maybe you know
Yep.
what I mean by that.
Yep.
How was that for you? So you have to incorporate kind of a different style to your martial arts. Like you knew technically, being friends with all of the other Rangers, you knew martial arts, or you could fight, you could hold your own as a Power Ranger.
As a Power Ranger.
As a
for
Power
sure.
Ranger.
Yep.
But it was also very awkward too. How did you do that as an actor? Like you had to, how was it, just as a performance?
I don't know. I just committed to Billy, and whatever felt organic for that, I would do. I will say that when we first were cast in the show, we trained for like a month in what I call television martial arts. We trained for like a month before we started filming, and I kind of was getting really good. And Haim Saban, the creator of the show, came in because we had to do like a little presentation for him, and he saw how good Billy was, and he got very angry and threw a fit in Hebrew. I didn't know what he was saying, but he was screaming in Hebrew at some of the producers, and I was like, oh my God, am I in trouble? And I guess he just didn't, he didn't want Billy to be that good. It was really important for him to make sure that Billy was an awkward fighter. And so after that happened, I was like, okay, I'm totally awkward. I'll never train again. I'll just pretend like, So, but, again, just organically what I felt was right for Billy. And I think with the character, what was great for me as an actor is Billy really got to grow over the course of his time on the show. And you really saw him go from awkward to actually being able to hold his own. And so I'm really proud of that for the character. And I just thought it was cool.
Great question.
Thank you. Yep. Hello.
Hello, how's it going?
It's great. Thank you.
Going good. So we know that we watched most of the bloopers from part of season 3 throughout. What were the bloopers or your favorite bloopers from the first couple of seasons that you're in?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. It's just funny when we would screw up lines, or sometimes, I don't know what happens on set sometimes, but because we're so close, like brothers and sisters, and because we spend 12 to 15 hours a day together, like you'll just look at, like I could just look at Amy Jo and just start laughing and not be able to stop laughing. So those were always, and I know it's annoying to people to watch that at home, but like for us, it was just funny because just 2 people would start laughing and then somebody else would join in, and then you just couldn't stop laughing. So, and then just some of the stuff that we would be, saying and doing and fighting, like we would fight a lipstick, and we were fighting a purse, and we were just fighting stupid stuff, and sometimes that reality would just set in and you'd be like, what am I doing? That kind of stuff. So, but there was just so many bloopers. I don't know. I like that they added them on the end of the shows. At some point they started doing that, so I thought that was funny.
Yeah, they're fun to look at.
Good.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys all have enjoyed all laughter back there.
Yep.
Fun.
We had a lot of fun.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
That's as high as it goes. Hello.
Hi.
So my question is, when the episodes aired and whenever it was time for you guys to morph, you would just reach behind your backs and then it would cut to the stock footage. But I've seen some promotional pictures of you guys actually holding the power morphers out in front of you, and I wonder, it's like, did you actually go through the whole, like, pulling it out, the whole flippy thing, and then they would yell cut?
It would depend. I mean, there certainly were a few episodes where we actually did go through the whole thing. But a lot of times, you're right, we would just go like this, and then we would go like this and go, it's morphin' time. But I'm just trying to think, I know there are episodes where we would actually hold it out. But There was definitely, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5, maybe more. I don't know.
I know
4 or 5 for sure.
There's
where we
a
would
few
actually
where you
do
did the routine, but it's
Yep.
like the picture. It was an episode where it definitely did not show up. At least I don't remember it showing
No.
up.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain episodes where it does, but most of the time we would just put our hand behind our back, and then we would become the Power Rangers.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
My question is, have you ever watched the original Super Sentai version, and what's your opinion of like the Blue Ranger per se?
Well, I've certainly watched a couple episodes, but like 20 some years ago.
Yeah.
And it was, dramatically different than our show.
Yeah.
It was very dark and scary. And so, I think the whole time that I was watching the episodes, it's like, oh my gosh, how did Haim Saban even figure out to make a kids show out of this footage? It just seems so strange to me because it's such a dark show. But I guess I don't really have an opinion of the Blue Ranger other than the couple episodes that I saw. He was fine. I mean, I remember the Green Ranger and Red Ranger were brothers, I think, in the Super Sentai footage, and the Green Ranger dies. But that's all I kind of remember. I'm sorry.
All right, that's cool.
Are you sure?
Yep, that's it.
Do you want to tell me something exciting about the Blue Ranger and the Super Sentai
No,
footage?
I just wondering because you talked about the newer Blue Ranger from the movies,
Right.
2006. I was just wondering about that one.
Yeah, I've never met my counterpart from Japan,
Okay.
and that show was already 20 years old when we took over the footage, so that's pretty crazy to think about.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Hello.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Good. So my question is, was it hard to leave the show? Like, how was it like at the last day of filming? Or
Well, that's a really convoluted question for me. I had issues behind the scenes because I was a gay person. I was not an out gay person. There was just a lot of rumors going around about me. And so that was really difficult for me. And I know that producers were doing like an inquisition, asking some of my co-stars and other crew members about my sexuality. They would pull them into their offices and question them. And so when I learned of that, that became very difficult for me and felt like a lot of weight was on my shoulders because back in the 90s, I guess if it was discovered that one of the lead actors, a superhero, was gay, it would ruin the show. And so that's sort of what was going on. So my last day, I filmed for half the day, and some things were said about me, and I just said, I can't do it anymore to myself, and I just walked off set, and that was it.
sorry to hear.
So yeah, no, I'm sorry.
Would you ever do like or have you trained in martial arts, or would you ever in the future? Or?
Train in martial arts? No, I mean, I was a competitive gymnast most of my young life, and so Amy Jo and I brought gymnastics to the show. So I was, a really good gymnast. But martial arts, I enjoy a lot. I just don't have, I shouldn't say this. I don't like the discipline of martial arts and having to bow down to people. Like you have an 18-year-old kid training me, and I have to be like, yes, sensei. That's tough for me. But I like everything about martial arts. So I don't know. I mean, I did do, for a while, I took Taekwondo when I was like young in 3rd grade, and then Steve Cardenas, who does Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I trained with him for a little while in Jiu-Jitsu, but it just isn't something that resonates with me fully.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Those are some great questions
Those
there,
are
folks.
awesome questions.
I just want to say, on behalf of everybody here, obviously you touched a lot of us in our hearts, just the family feel that this show brought to so many people over the years, and, a lot of barriers that were broken down, when it comes to diversity as well. I just can't thank you enough for taking the time out of your day and sharing some of your stories for us. So if everybody, if you can, just come on and get up and give this man a good kind of applause.
Thank you. That's nice of you.
David Yost.
Thank you.